If you are looking for a cheerful tale, I suggest you put this essay down. Find a story about kittens, or perhaps a nice piece about well-maintained gardens. This story is not cheerful. It begins with Harry Potts. Harry was an orphan. He lived with his aunt and uncle. They were not kind people. They were in fact rather dreadful. They ran a shabby Airbnb. Harry's room was not a room at all. It was a cupboard, under the stairs. Spiders lived there too. They were probably Harry's only friends, but spiders are not good conversationalists. Harry's cupboard was small. It was dusty. It smelled faintly of old socks and despair. Harry felt it often. He did not have a bed. He had a pile of old coats. This was not comfortable, not even for a small boy, who was also a wizard, though he did not know that yet. The Airbnb run by his Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon was called Privet Drive-Thru. This was a terrible name. It suggested speed and convenience. Neither was true. Harry did all the chores. He scrubbed toilets, he washed dishes. He tried to degrim the grime. It was an uphill battle. One day, things changed, as they sometimes do, often for the worse, but occasionally for the bewildering. Strange letters began to arrive, addressed to Mr. H. Potts, the cupboard under the stairs. Uncle Vernon was not pleased. He had a purple face. He shouted very loudly. He tried to burn the letters, but more came, hundreds of them, delivered by owls, which is not the usual method for postal services, even shabby ones. Then, on Harry's 11th birthday, there was a knock, a very loud knock. Standing outside was a giant, or at least a half-giant. His name was Haggy B. He was very, very large. He had a bushy beard and kind eyes. He arrived on a flying scooter, a bright pink flying scooter. It sputtered a bit, but it flew.
"You a wizard, baby?"
Just like that. No lengthy explanation, no gentle introduction, just a statement. A very surprising statement. Harry blinked. Wands and Whimsy Academy was not like Privet Drive-Thru, not at all. It was a very large castle, with many towers, and floating candles, and ghosts who glided through walls. This was all very new to Harry. He had never seen a floating candle before, or a friendly ghost. The students wore robes, they carried wands, they talked about spells and potions. Harry felt very out of place, like a sock in a cutlery drawer, a very small, bewildered sock. He clutched the acceptance letter Haggy B had given him. It felt important. Then something even stranger happened. People started whispering his name. Harry Potts. They pointed at him. They stared at his forehead. He had a scar there, shaped like a tiny lightning bolt, or perhaps a squiggly worm. He had always had it. He thought he got it in a car crash, the car crash that made him an orphan. But now, people looked at it with awe. Awe is a feeling of respect and wonder, mixed with a little fear. Harry did not understand why his scar was so interesting. It just itched sometimes. Friends are people who don't mind if you are famous, or if you lived in a cupboard, or if you are generally quite awkward. Harry needed friends, desperately. On the train to the academy he met a boy. This boy had bright red hair, and many freckles. His name was Ronnie Wease. Ronnie was from a large wizarding family. They were poor but kind, which was a refreshing change from rich and horrid. Or in Harry's case, not rich and horrid. Ronnie was rather amusing. He had a pet rat that mostly slept. He knew a lot about wizarding sweets, which often had surprising side effects, like turning your tongue into a slug, or making you whistle uncontrollably. Ronnie was not impressed by Harry's fame. He was more interested in sharing his chocolate frogs. This was a good sign, a very good sign indeed. Harry felt a little less like a bewildered sock, and a little more like a boy who might actually belong somewhere. Life at Wands and Whimsy Academy was a whirlwind. A whirlwind is a spinning column of air, often full of dust and debris. In this case, it was full of magic and mystery, and a surprising amount of homework. Harry learned to wave his wand. Sometimes spells worked. Sometimes they backfired. Once, Ronnie tried to turn his teacup into a turtle. It ended up with fur, and a very bad temper. School was certainly an adventure with a high risk of accidental transfiguration, which is a fancy word for changing something into something else. One of the most popular and dangerous things at school was Zoomich. Zoomich was a sport, played on flying broomsticks, or in some cases enchanted vacuum cleaners for the less affluent. Players zoomed around, they threw balls through hoops. They tried to catch a tiny, very fast golden thing called the snitchy. Harry, surprisingly, was very good at Zoomich. Perhaps all those years of dodging Duddy's punches had given him quick reflexes, or perhaps it was just wizard destiny. Not all adults at Wands and Whimsy were like the kindly, if eccentric, Dumbledee Dazzle, or the large and friendly Haggy B. Some of the teachers, or didacts as they are sometimes called, were suspicious. A didact is a teacher. Suspicious means they make you feel they are hiding something, or are up to no good. Harry, Ronnie and Herms quickly learned to spot them. It was a useful skill. In a school where danger seemed to lurk, around every corner, and sometimes in the staff room, sipping tea and plotting. Perhaps
Professor Snarkus was the potions master. He had greasy black hair, a hooked nose, and a permanently sneering expression. He seemed to take an instant dislike to Harry. Perhaps it was Harry's fame, or his messy hair, or his general air of bewildered heroism. Professor Snarkus was very good at making sarcastic comments. Sarcasm is saying the opposite of what you mean. To be unkind, or funny, if you're Professor Snarkus. His lessons were difficult and often ended with Harry covered in something foul-smelling.
as the school year progressed, the feeling of unease grew. Unease is like a small, worried mouse scurrying around in your stomach. It became clear that Lord Vibemort was not entirely gone. He was trying to return, to regain his power and his rather unfortunate vibes. This was, by all accounts, a very bad thing, the kind of thing that could ruin your whole day, or your whole existence. Harry felt a strange connection to this news, as if his squiggly scar was tingling, with a premonition of doom, or perhaps just an itch. The note room, it turned out, was guarding something. Something Lord Vibemort wanted. Something called the Philosopher's Scone, a legendary baked good, said to grant eternal life, and excellent with a cup of tea. Harry, Ronnie and Herms realized the suspicious teachers were involved, or trying to be. They decided they had to act. They, 3 young students, had to stop the most evil wizard of all time. This was a rather ambitious plan, especially since they still struggled with some of their homework. But they were brave, or perhaps just foolish. Often the two looked quite similar. They faced a series of dangerous puzzles. Put in place to protect the scone, there were giant chess pieces that moved on their own, and riddles that made your brain hurt, and a room full of flying keys.